Hey guys,
Hmm?
I'm back with another game spotlighting episode, and this time we're spotlighting Starcraft2. And since personally I don't have enough knowledge about the game, I do have a guest with me, Matt, one of our head coaches over on Victorious Gaming. So he'll basically fill in the gray areas that I can't provide for you guys. So what we're gonna be going through in this spotlight are so some of the pros and cons in the three races that are in the game, and show you guys a couple tutorials on how to actually play the game itself.
Okay, so there are three different races in StarCraft 2. Zerg, Terran, and Protoss. And each one of the races has their own different attribute that makes them strong or not strong. For example, Protoss has like Sky Toss. Terran has some battle cruisers and early out aggression. They can go bio builds. Zerg, usually they'll go with like Zergling Rush, Baneling Busts, things of that nature. So the game's pretty well balanced due to the fact that a lot of the different tactics that come out have a good counter to them. Um, just happens to be that currently there's a couple of different meta picks that people don't completely understand. One of which is being static defense with swarm hosts, but overall, the different races have their different attributes. What is this? Big Game Hunters. Is this a custom game?
Yeah,
Oh, okay. Um, oh, so are we playing against bots? Oh, that's what we're doing?
yeah, and
Oh,
so
okay, yeah,
you
yeah,
can
yeah.
still
Okay.
explain.
All right, so basically the race that I've chosen is Zerg. Zerg is one of my favorite ones. That's why you see my portrait as a Baneling. I just feel like Zerg is a really strong race. Zerg is one of the races that can deal a lot of early on aggression with Zerglings, since you can make two Zerglings per um, like per Marine that could be made. Zerglings are very weak, but the thing is, like, you can make up to 100 Zerglings in a very quick succession. So overall, for me, Zerg is all about all-out aggression, knowing when to go in, and knowing when to destroy other people. Oh, do I have the...
Yeah,
Oh,
cause
I could have done that. Yeah, sorry.
yeah, cause I only had up to easy to bump them up to, and it's like on your skill level, with that won't take that them all.
Oh, yeah. Um, So I'll just show one of the more kind of like cheesy than all
Woohoo!
out
Someone
builds.
joined our
But
channel.
so yeah, Zerg is all about like they can do a lot of they can do a lot of damage early on. Protoss, which Gunner is playing. Protoss is one of those very special races where they can put down early on aggression with with lots of stalkers, but really the whole thing about Protoss is they are very dominant on late game abilities. Um, they can just they can get their sky toss people, which is like carriers, lots of AoE people. So with Zerg, it's very difficult. But one of the things that a lot of early on Zerg players learn to do is they'll do this thing called they'll do an early spawning pool. So within each and every one of the races, when you start off the game, you can only make drones, and you need to make a spawning pool for Zerg, a barracks for Terran, or a gateway for Protoss in order to actually start creating your army units. So for Zerg, what they do is, since they can start pumping out guys so early, is they'll save up all of their minerals until they can make an early spawning pool, which, as you can, if you look over at my base right now in the upper in the upper corner, you can see that I'm already building a spawning pool. So I haven't made any drones. I'm just waiting. I'm waiting, and then I'm making myself a spawning pool. Now, this is a very cheesy build, but it's just one to show the kind of early on aggression that can happen. Um, there's an option to show times in which, like, how much time has elapsed in the game. And I don't know if you have that on yours, Gunner, but on mine it shows that you can have a spawning pool, and this is a 7 pool, but the same idea applies. Is you can start making units at 2 minutes. So these 3 units, they're gonna go to the enemy base, and once they get to the enemy base,
Which we
you'll
still
see,
haven't found yet. One of
yeah.
them's probably
Well,
by you.
yeah, one of the important things to remember is that there are only 4 spawning places in here, and if there are 4 characters, then they have to be in the other 2 spawning areas.
That is
So
true.
I know for a fact that,
Okay.
look, see this Protoss is here. I sent an Overlord to scout it out. It's too early for him to have anything to defend. And so this is where, kind of cheesy build, but you'll see I'm going to be just marching in with these 6 Zerglings, and all I need are these 6 Zerglings to basically kill his entire drone line. Are you watching? Look in the bottom right.
Yeah.
So I've already killed a good amount of drones, and he's got barely any guys. Now the problem with this is, like, now look, he has only like maybe six drones, and he's gonna have to try and defend against more all-out aggression. Gonna keep sending guys, Gonna make another. Look, I'm already bringing out another set, and of course, like, I'm not taking it super seriously. If I were, I probably would have already been making guys, got another Overlord, so then I could start making, like, I don't know, like 6 guys or something like that, making a queen, things of that nature. But I just wanted to show you, like, already at like 4 minutes in the game, you see how you have no units already. At this time, I'm already doing as much economic damage as possible, taking on all of his different drones best I can. Constantly keeping the enemy player on his toes. And with this, basically, it's going to be difficult for him to defend. So we know that there are 4 players in this game, correct?
Yes.
We see that the blue player is in the bottom right? The blue Protoss player, right? That means we also know that the other player is in the bottom left. So if you were to want to make an early on aggression,
Most likely they're right there.
yeah.
Your allies are in battle.
And I have one of my probes going out and scouting.
And so, is that? Oh. So that was just basic showing. There's an easy way to counter every build, like I said. So with the 7 pool that I did just now, the easy way to counter the 7 pool is to actually just wall off your base. So you see how here in your base you have 2 cannons and a pylon. If you put your gateway in the ramp, and then you close it off with a pylon and maybe a forge, you're actually able to make it so that no unit can get in, because you'll also put a zealot to take care of the choke point. So that's how you prevent the early on aggression, because there's no way for the Zerglings to actually get through that wall. Now, the build that I just employed, which was the 7 pool, it's a tactic known as cheesing, and that's basically I was taking advantage of the inexperience of the other player. Now, cheesing usually it's not. I don't really like it. I don't really like using cheese. For example, like Protoss, they can do a thing called a cannon rush, where you put a pylon in the enemy's base. The reason why is because Protoss is one of the only races that can actually build units just
Your
about
pros are under attack.
anywhere and
Okay,
everywhere that
looks
you
like
want.
the... Okay, looks like the other one's tossing right there.
Yeah. So we know now that both people are Protoss. So one of the things that you do when you have that kind of knowledge is you start to counter build the enemy player. So it's kind of like League in a sense. It's like you know
Yeah.
what the enemy's race is, you know what the enemy race is strong at. So now what is Protoss strong at? Well, Protoss is really strong, has really strong units. Their unit value is usually very good. For example, Colossi are giant legged monsters basically, and what they do is they do a lot of AoE same fire, and they have a good amount of health to them as well. The only
Upgrade
problem
complete.
is, in order for a Protoss to get Colossi out, they actually have to spend it takes a lot of time to actually produce enough minerals to keep a steady flow of colossi going. And colossi themselves, they take a fairly good amount of time to create. So what we usually have to do is we have to counter build them. So for Zerg, a lot of the times you want to go Roach Hydra. Roach Hydra is roaches are I think one of the strongest ground units in the game. Um,
I
but they
would...
have a very weak counter to
Oh,
them.
I would say... maybe for Zerg, those are tough, but I would say in numbers, the
Your
Zealots
allies are
are
in battle.
tougher.
Your
Yeah,
allies are in battle.
zealots
You
are
have not
tough.
enough
But the thing
minerals.
is, I actually meant to say one of the toughest ground ranged units. The thing about zealots is, yeah, they're tough units. But if we're talking about tough melee units, there are other guys who are actually stronger than
Hmm.
a zealot. For example, there's ultralisks. There's I mean, Hellbats are pretty beefy themselves. Marauders are pretty beefy, but those aren't melee, so yeah. Overall, I think whichever race you have a good alternate. So for you, zealots aren't really the guys that you want to build. Most of the time, you want to build. You can build into Sky Toss, but it looks like since you went for 3 gateways and you're building a cybernetics core, usually what people like to do is they like to build themselves into, I don't know, um, go stalkers and then get the upgrades. So, one of the most important portions of the parts of the game is upgrades. Every race has their own set of upgrades, and they have their own buildings that allow them to create upgrades. For example, right now I'm creating my Evo chambers. My evolution chambers give me upgrades for my ranged units, and for Protoss, it's your forge, and you're
Hmm.
already using your forge, and you're creating an upgrade for your shield, which is good. The shield upgrade is really important. Um, and for Terran, if I can remember, I'm pretty sure it's. Um Gosh, I am blanking on the name, but it's they have a structure as well that allows them to create their own units, and the units that are
You
I'm
have
sorry,
not
allows
enough
them to upgrade
minerals.
their own units, and when they upgrade their own units, basically what they'll be doing is either more damage, they'll be slowing people down. Terran actually has a lot of upgrades that they can get, for example, stim packs. So there's many different ways to upgrade your units, and it's all to go towards the end game goal, which is obviously to win the game. And the way to win the game, you can win the game basically by destroying all of your enemies' bases, and usually you can't do that until you destroy their army first. So people will build up massive armies and then just storm the enemy's base.
Hmm.
One concerning portion is that you have to take into account though is economy. Economy is really important for this game. So your economy, in comparison to my economy, actually is weaker. And the reason why I say it's weaker is because when we look at the two contrasting economies, I'm on 3 bases. Well, I'm creating my third base right now,
Mm-hmm.
and the 3 bases are saturated. Saturation basically means point of no return actually, but that's the original term for it. But saturation basically means you have a base and it has at least 16 drones on gas, and then I'm sorry, 16 drones on minerals. Oh, not 16 drones on gas. 16 drones on minerals, and then 3 drones on both the gas. Usually that's a well-saturated base. But you see right now what I'm doing to the bottom right is I'm just swarming in with roaches
Mm-hmm.
and I'm fighting his base. Trying to make sure that he can't really produce anything. I'm I'm destroying his building first. The reason why I'm destroying this building is because I am afraid of a colossi actually coming out. Because roaches are they can take a couple colossi hits, but they're still really weak.
Mm-hmm.
And right now, I just know that I can basically destroy his base and get him. The reason why I was able to beat him very easily is because I knew my economy was better than him, so I knew that I could produce more than him. Does
Mm-hmm.
that make sense? If you have more minerals than your opponent, you can create more units, right?
Yes.
So I was able to just gauge because I knew when he was taking his expand. I was able to gauge, okay, well, can't make as many units as I can because he just doesn't have the gas to. He doesn't have the gas, nor does he have the minerals to. So I was just like, all right, well, I'm just going to call in my troops and then I'm going to attack him because I knew I could beat him with what I'd seen. So economy is important, and the way to really tell about a person's economy is through scouting. So how do you scout? Well, all of the different races have very different ways of scouting. For example, Zerg has um, overlords, and overlords are really good early scouting. You can also send Zerglings because Zerglings are good early aggression units. Oh, that's your guys.
Yeah.
I was wondering. Um, for Protoss, you guys have observers. Now you see that. I don't think you got to see it in time because I destroyed it. But you guys have observers. Heron, they can have medevac drops. They also have scan, which is an upgrade to their Nexus base. The upgrade allows them to actually scan wherever the enemy is for the win. All right, so we just won that one. It was pretty easy. We could play against some harder bots. The good thing about this, one second. So, game was pretty easy. We were doing it against very easy AI bots. So we'll just do it one more time. We'll do versus AI game. Uh,
Mind showing a. Oh, and one thing that I would say that you forgot to say about Zerg is all the black goo that's on the ground. You need that to basically spawn all your buildings and stuff on.
I'm sorry. What?
Um, you
Sorry,
know,
I wasn't focusing. My bad.
uh,
What did you say?
the all the black goo that spawns around your hives and stuff. You need that to spawn all your buildings and things, right?
Yes. The goo around my base is called creep. And there are very many different ways to create creep. For example, overlords can drop creep. Um, once you get your base upgraded to a hive, the actual base can turn into the actual base creates creep around it, and then queens can spawn creep tumors, and the creep tumors spawn creep as well. Um, So I just put us into another one. I don't know
Mhm.
if this one will be actually good. So we're playing Zerg and Protoss versus Terran and Zerg. And so now that we're doing Zerg Protoss versus Terran and Zerg, we're going to be going for some different builds. So for Protoss versus Zerg is very interesting because Zerglings are very good at amassing units, but also Protoss is very beefy, very strong AoE units. For example, you can make Archons, you can make Colossi, and then you can also make Carriers. All three of those
You
are
have
very
lost some
beefy AoE
minerals.
units. So when you look at the enemy race and you see, oh look, it's a Zerg. I'm playing against a Zerg and a Terran. Usually, what people will do is they'll try and mass up on some AOE kind of guys.
Mhm.
Um, so what I'm doing right now with my Overlord is I'm basically scouting. Scouting's a very important thing that you can do because scouting just makes it so that you can know what your enemy has, and as I always say, knowledge is power.
Mhm.
Having more knowledge helps you to play the game better. So with Protoss, you want to basically with the game, in order to make your economy better, you should always be making more and more units. Usually, when you're around 10 supply, and the supply is in the top right. Usually when you're around
Someone
10
just
supply,
told
you want to
us.
make your first pylon for Protoss, with supply depot for Terran, and then for me it's an Overlord. You want to make those units at around 10 supply, and then just keep making drones, keep making drones, because drones are the key to having good economy. And then after you have enough drones, you can
Someone just
make
left
another
this chat.
base to make even more
Life
drones,
is sad.
or you can start making your army units because you feel like your economy is strong enough.
Mhm. Oh, and one thing that I want to point out is if you toss, you can't build on the creep from Zerg and vice versa. You can if you Zerg, you can't build on the energy fields that toss lays down.
That's right. So usually, the only barracks can't be made on creep, and then pylons can't be made on creep, and vice versa. It's kind of a way
You have not enough
to make
minerals.
sure that no early on shenanigans can really happen. For example, I can't build anything like right in your area.
Mhm.
But from what I do know, I'm pretty sure pylons can be created on creep.
Your allies are in
I'm
battle.
correct. I don't know. Um, but so I'm scouting out the Terran player. I'm making sure that he's not doing any early game shenanigans. So the one that I did,
Your allies are in
the
battle.
tactic I employed last game, it's as I said, it was a cheese strat, and the way to defend against all cheese strats is to have a good idea of what's going on the map. If you scout out what your enemy's doing and you see that they're doing something cheesy,
You have
um,
not enough minerals.
cheese basically by definition means high risk, high reward. The high reward is obviously damaging their economy early on so that they can't do anything. The high risk is that you go so far
You have
into
not
early
enough
on
minerals.
damage that, to be honest, you're left wide open for a comeback attack. So I could retaliate with a bunch of forces. So for Protoss, usually what you guys want to do is you want to create your gateway and your forge at the ramp. It makes a wall, and the wall helps to defend against the enemy better.
Mhm.
But so we know that we're going against Zergs, Zergs and Terran. So for me, what I'm thinking about first is obviously Zerg. Zerg v Zerg has its own tactics, which is I need to make a Baneling nest because he's going to try and mass up. I'm going to have to try and mass up. And Zerg is basically whoever gets the most guys first wins. And that's also kind of just StarCraft in general. You have the most units, usually you'll win. And after that, there takes takes a couple of little bit of takes a little bit of skill after that to use your units effectively. For example, there's things called like there's micro and macro that you have to use, and micro, for example, is individually taking care of like your units. So if you have like 100 units, being able to move like 10 units at a time is pretty good micro. Pretty good micro. I don't know. I'm not like a pro, so maybe a pro could do even better than that. But yeah, I think doing that, it shows like a pretty good understanding of micro and macro and stuff like that. Um, so I'm gonna be making a baneling nest so that I can deal with his mass people. As a Protoss, you'd want to build into Colossi because if the enemy Terran player also goes into Bio, then you'll want to deal against his mass marine strategies. But yeah, overall, these are just the different things that you have to do in StarCraft. Understanding your opponent's
Under attack.
strengths and
Um,
weaknesses.
can I get some help?
Someone just typed
Of course,
something.
yeah. I'm just so the thing is like so he went for roaches, and the thing with roaches are
Your ally
much harder to spawn, but you can get there are stronger units than Zerglings. So for example, um, I was able to get more Zerglings out, but he was able to deal with my upfront damage because he had a good amount of tankiness from the roaches. So roaches are like the tanky ranged people. However, it was a pretty early push from him. So what I'm going to be doing now is I'm going to be pushing right back. And this is what I mean. Usually, people will try and do these early on aggressive plays, but they'll do it kind of incorrectly. They won't really understand that they have to saturate bases, things of that nature. So yeah, so just he doesn't have enough units to deal with my guys, and because of that, oh my gosh, because of that,
Your allies are in
just
battle.
gonna be marching on into his base. We're just gonna kill his guys. And look, see, just because I have more guys now, I have more guys than they do, I can overall just
Upgrade complete.
cripple them. I'm going to be sending these Zerglings now over to his side.
Someone just typed something.
I'll accept his defeat, and then I'll just go over, and then I'll fight this guy. So, the Zerg went so far into unit production that created too many bases. He created too many, not bases. Well, many
Your
buildings.
allies are in battle.
So now it's 2v1. Usually in these scenarios, Zerg wins. Gonna try and send a scout over here.
Oh, and another thing that I want to point out on the menu, you do have a couple buttons on the upper right hand side of the screen where you can send minerals and or gas to your allies and or request them. Plus, you can give control of your units to one of your allies.
Yeah. So I think what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna try and show you just how much economy is important. I'm gonna send you. How many minerals do you have right now?
Like six, almost 700.
Okay. Well, look at how much you're gonna have now.
Okay, yeah.
So
I'll,
you can see like I have a clear economic advantage,
mhm.
and like some people, it's like some people define it as like kind of a greedy play, but in StarCraft, like a lot of the times it's all about being greedy and then seeing what you can get away with.
Someone doesn't
It's
like
not like
this. They left.
some people believe that the game is very linear and it's like, oh well, if they just have to build the same thing over and over again and like that you'll just win the game. And that's true, but the other thing is that even if you're playing the same units and the same things and doing the same
Your
stuff every
allies
single
are in
time,
battle.
the game, you need to understand like what it is that you can actually get away with. And that's why scouting is so important. If you can scout what the enemy has, you can actually be able to understand just how much you're able to get
Base
away
is
with.
under attack. Your allies are in battle.
So, for example, right now, I'm in a bit of a disadvantage because I went so heavy into ground units that with these air units, I can't really take care of it. So I had to instantly start morphing more and more air
Your
units,
allies are in battle.
which is the reason why I have my Spire, the
You
reason
must
why I have
construct
these different
additional
guys.
pylons.
And with this, I'm just able to get away
Your
with
allies are in
some
battle.
pretty aggressive two-base plays.
You must construct additional pylons.
So with these different builds, you do get an edge on the game, but there's another aspect to the game that's actually pretty important,
You have
and
not
that's
enough
APM.
minerals.
APM is a really important aspect to this game, and the reason why it's a really important aspect in the game is because it basically means actions per minute. In this game, it's different from regular RTSs, where you can basically be like, oh, well,
You
I
must
want
construct
to do
additional
this turn,
pylons.
and I can just wait to see what my opponent does. It's not like chess. It's this game takes more active a more active role in the game. You have to take a more active role and like
You have
understand
not enough
what your
minerals.
enemy's
You must
doing and
construct
in
additional
real
pylons.
time react to it. So right now I just scouted out the fact that the guy didn't have a second base. I didn't really expect him to make a second base. Usually when people make early on pushes like the enemy Zerg player did, you just have to think about it. There's no way for an enemy player, the enemy player doesn't just get more resources just for no reason. Usually there's some hidden meaning to the reason why they got it. For example, I have more um minerals than you do because I created a second base, I
Hmm.
did an attack, and I was able to actually legitimately farm it up without
Your
being
allies are in battle.
punished. So yeah. Alright. The enemy's coming, so
Your
we'll just fight him
allies are
head
in
on.
battle.
He can't beat us. We just have more. For example, we have two players versus one, and then the other thing is just like he's on one base. A one base push doesn't have enough minerals to create as much as a two base does. So yeah, like sitting on a bank really makes it
Your
easy.
allies
So
are in
this is the
battle.
black goo is the creep. He's been spreading his creep, I think, with his overlords. I don't see any creep tumors. Look, we're just wiping the floor with the guy. Now, he might have created a second base
Your
over this
allies
way.
are in battle.
And the reason why I say that is because we saw his units coming from this direction. So what we're doing is we're just fight him
Someone just joined us.
over here. Gonna take him on head on because we have enough.
Your allies are in battle.
I think the
Someone
enemy's
doesn't
Zerg
like
player
it.
is just gonna GG really
They
soon.
left.
That's the overall gist of the game, really.
Your allies are in battle. Your allies are in battle.
And I should have a fully upgraded mother kit for you soon.
Well, I think we're gonna win pretty soon, so
Oh,
Your allies are in battle.
are you
yeah.
sure? Did you? Oh yeah.
I was taking out the other bases.
Okay,
So
so
that's the overall gist of the game. Figuring out what your enemy has, using it against him, it helps you to do things better.
okay, then I would say from that point, then this is a pretty good wrapping up point for this episode. So thanks to Matt for coming in enlightening us all about StarCraft 2. So until next time, see ya.